Hi, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Critical Podcast. I am one of your hosts, Jimmy Good, and joining me, as always, is my co-host, Mr. Joe Lever. Joe, how's it going?
Howdy. How you doing?
Doing just fine, man. That was kind of a good start on our part. You guys didn't hear this beforehand, but we just kind of went. We're just off to the races. So for anyone who might be joining us for the first time, Joe and I love to discuss movies and video games and TV shows and just love the things that really kind of penetrate your mind when you're kind of living your life. But to begin with, Joe and I like to play a little game. Maybe one day it'll change, but for today, it's the same as it's always been, animal facts. So what I'm going to do is give Joe a few facts about a certain animal. We'll see if he can get it. So, Joe,
lay it on me. Come on.
We'll start off with this. This mammal has perhaps the densest fur. The densest fur amongst any animal. And another fact about I do have a few facts about it here. So it has the densest fur. It is also known to use tools from time to time. Likes to eat various mussels and crabs and things like that. And has also been known to hold on to one another so they don't drift apart while they slide. No, yeah, you got it. It's very good.
That one was a little easy. When you said densest fur, I was like, seal. Then you said clams, mussels, and crabs, and I was like, yeah, I know it. I just wanted you to waste your breath and talk some more, you know.
Well, I had to think about it for a while, so I hope you're happy. Anywho, so on today's episode, we're going to be talking about a lot of different things. It's been kind of a slow news week, but there have been some things that have cropped up. We're going to talk about Final Fantasy 15 a little bit here. We got some new Guardians of the Galaxy 2 concept art, and I'm just going to talk about the Titanfall 2 pre-alpha/beta thing I got to go and play this weekend. There'll be another one this coming weekend, so if you missed out last weekend, then you can check it out. But let's start with those things, and then I think there might be a few things here and there, other little pieces that Joe and I might get into. But, Joe, let's start off with Final Fantasy 15. Now, I know you're not really jazzed about this game, but it was supposed to come out in about a month. About September 30th is the date. They had a reveal event, Joe. So they went on the stage, they had this hour-long presentation, they're talking about all this stuff, there's the new anime, they've got this movie coming out, all this stuff, and they revealed the date, and people were like, oh my god, it's finally happening. And this was back in March.
And then they all walk backstage and they're like, psych!
yeah, they're swaggy. So what happened was the director of the game, Tabata-san, if you will, he went out and he kind of made the 6-minute, 5-minute long video on YouTube talking about why they're delaying the game for about 2 months to November 29th. And saying that, you know, they want to have time to polish the game, they want to have time to finalize a lot of things. They also wanted to make it so that there wouldn't be a huge day one patch for those people who might not have the internet to get it right away, and then they could just have the game at a very in a very good way that it wouldn't have been in that first day. So basically, Joe, what that would mean is, like, if they got on September 30th and if you didn't have internet connection, there could be problems potentially that they couldn't have ironed out, that they were just like, all right, you got to live with this game how it is right now. And that's kind of what they're saying right now. And something similar happened to the game No Man's Sky that came out recently. They delayed that for like a few weeks or a month or something like that. And people were like losing their minds. So I don't want to talk about the game itself, Joe. I want to talk about delays in general. So Joe, as a guy who likes typically a little more like annualized franchises and stuff, this doesn't really affect you typically. Like Call of Duty, I don't think would ever be like, we're delaying it till January. They'd be like, no, you're idiots.
Something tells me a game like Call of Duty or a franchise like that, they have such a regimented schedule. Like, we are going to hit this date no matter what, and they probably got it planned out to a T. Like, this process happens here, this process happens here, this process happens in July, this process happens in August between the 20th and 30th, and then here's our final testing between September and release. And I'm sure there are other games that way, but I mean, that's the construction background of me talking. Got to develop that schedule. We got to hit that deadline, you know.
Sure. Yeah,
I don't know. I mean, if there are other games out there that you can still play and have fun with in the meantime. I mean, I know you're excited for a game, but if they're delaying it, number one, it's for a good reason, because there's money involved, money lost, time put in.
True.
So they wouldn't handle it more if they weren't increasing the value of the game.
Yeah, I think you're right, definitely. And one thing I wanted to mention before we keep going on with this is that I neglected to with like Assassin's Creed, Call of Duty and stuff. They typically have multiple groups working on these games, and sometimes I think the frustration comes out of like one group who's making one game and they delay it. Whereas like those other annualized franchises, like we've got 3 groups on this. Like there's always someone coming the next year who's like, we've been working on this game for like 2 years. Mm-hmm. But this game, Joe, has been in kind of development hell for a while. It's like it's been a decade. We've been waiting for a decade for this, and I feel like 2 months is like a minuscule thing to be kind of
it's a drop in
I'm
the
losing
bucket.
my mind. Yeah, exactly.
You've already got a million drops in there. What are 3 more? You know.
Exactly.
So, and like I said, they're increasing the value of the game, so you're gonna get your money's worth. Would you rather buy it a month early and get a shit game that you don't want to play anymore? Well, 2 months actually, right? September 29th, bump back to November 29th or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. But companies look at it that way. It's about the money. So they're like, okay, these 2 months will be worth it. We'll handle it more. We'll spend more money on development, but we'll reap the rewards and make that money back, by increasing the value of the game, making it better. More people will buy it. People will review it well. 5 stars instead of 2. That sort of thing. And that's how the company probably views it. And I'm sure that's how it pans out in the end when it washes out in the laundry.
Sure.
Similar to a movie.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of the superhero movies, you see that going on now, reshoots and all that sort of stuff. Yeah. But it's all a money game. But, I don't know. There's a lot of good games out there. And take up your time with that until that time. Just try and not focus on it. Don't think about it. But I know it's hard to do. But another thing is, what was I going to say here? Another thing. Oh crap!
It's okay if you.
Continue,
I've got some
Jimmy.
things I could say. All right, perfect. So. Yeah, you're talking about kind of reshoots for movies and stuff, and we love to talk about all these types of things. But for instance, Star Wars Episode 8 was going to be coming out, I believe, May 2017, a while ago. And before that, I had said like, oh yeah, it's going to be coming out like December 2017, because I was like, well, why would they go like one movie come in December and then another one in May? It's like if you start doing that, it's going to get weird. But then they pushed that one back. They're like, all right, we're going to push it back. We're just going to do it kind of every year, just on this certain timeline, and that's just going to be how we run our movies. And I think that's a good thing, because this is more talking about a brand. We're talking about damaging something that could potentially hurt down the road. So Joe, if you didn't know this before, Final Fantasy, the last installments of these games, like the Final Fantasy 13 trilogy, which there were 3 games, and then Final Fantasy 14, which is an MMO, at first all that stuff, people were like, this is garbage, it's broken, whatever. The MMO has recently kind of rebooted with this Realm Reborn thing, and people are loving it. And with Final Fantasy 15, I think this is like their mark to say like, all right, starting from here on, it's going to be good, it's going to be fine, everybody's going to love this franchise, and we're going to show you that we are the kings of the RPG realm. Because if they don't do that, they don't take that time, especially right now, I think it's going to be a problem.
Yeah, and Final Fantasy kind of started out real strong and then took a dip, didn't it?
Well, it kind of depends on who you ask, but it's, it went up, like, it's had a lot of fans, and there's like definitely ones like 7 and 6 and 9 that are like the most beloved ones. And they've had little missteps here and there, but they haven't had such kind of vitriol thrown at them since like 13, and those 3 games came out, and then 14. The problem with 13, Joe, is a lot of those games were kind of very linear at most of the points, and people liked having kind of the more open world aspects of those games. Mm-hmm. But this game kind of is not going to do that. But my thought is that it's not just we're worried about the one game, it's worried about what's Final Fantasy 16 going to be like, or 17. If people are like, oh man, they couldn't do 15 right, and they had like 10 years to do that. So it's like,
exactly.
We got to sit back and just be like, all right, we got to make sure this is good.
With that much of a gap, and then the fan base that they have, they got to live up to a lot, and they have to get people re-engaged. They're starting from scratch, basically. It's like, oh, it's Final Fantasy, but I mean, they better knock it out of the park if they're trying to reinvigorate it.
Sure, and the problem too is like besides your your Japanese market, your Eastern audience, and the diehard fans here in the West, they're trying to make this game appeal to the Western audience, the ones who love the games like Red Dead Redemption and Grand Theft Auto, like those Rockstar games, and those kind of like big open world, just like I can do whatever I want anytime. So, man, I'm hopeful for it, and I'm really excited about this game. But when I heard that delay, I was like, oh, that kind of bums me out. But at the same time, kind of what we're doing too. I was like, thank goodness I don't have to review a huge RPG right before October, because we got Gears of War 4, Titanfall 2, and there's like all these other games.
It'll help to spread those out a little bit. Maybe that's part of their pushback, is that there's a lot of competition in that time zone, and bumping it to the end of that might be better for them.
I'd think that, Joe, but no one, after they picked that date, there was like nobody around that little area that time, and it was kind of like, all right, this is Final Fantasy 15's time. And weirdly enough, around end of September, that's when like the Halo games and some of the Gears games and stuff like that have typically launched, and that's the beginning of the holiday season, quote unquote. So that's when it's like, oh, we got the games have been out for these past few months before Christmas, and people can just pick them up. So I'm not sure what's going to happen, because that's like right around Thanksgiving here in the States, and I don't know if we're going to see like a Black Friday, Final Fantasy 15 deal. Probably not. I'd be like, it's half off. I'd be like, oh my god, I'll get 2. But for no real reason. But yeah, so I think you and I are kind of in agreement on this, talking about delays. Not that big of a deal. I think especially in this case, it's, we've been waiting for this for a long time, and I don't think waiting a little bit longer is any problem. The thing you said, though, Joe, about there are a bunch of other games, I guess my concern is to that group who might just be like, this is the only game I'm buying this year. And then maybe they can only afford the one game, or they're buying it for somebody for, something, a birthday or an event, or they're just like, oh, they're going to get you this. And then it's just like, I can't for another 2 months. And then you've kind of been waiting all year for this to be like, all right, just, as long as it comes in November, right? It can't really be pushed back any further than that. So,
yeah.
But yeah, no, I'm still excited for it. I think it's a good thing. And hopefully whatever it is, I hope they polish the crap out of it. I hope it's just like nice and smooth, buttery smooth. But with open world games, that's usually not the case. There's some things you can't account for. But they'll patch the crap out of it. So there'll be like a day one, like 20 gig patch still or something. I'm like, oh my god. Like, but yeah, I'm still excited for it.
Oh,
so
yeah.
Anyway, Joe, I shot you that link to the Guardians of the Galaxy 2. Are you looking at these images here? Because we got this first one a little while ago. Kind of them like in front of that explosion or whatever.
See that, yeah.
And you kind of have you got Star-Lord, you got Gamora, you got Drax, you got Baby Groot, and you got Rocket. But then you also have Yondu over Star-Lord's shoulder, and then you've got Nebula, who is kind of one of the henchmen of the last movie. And then I don't know the name of the person behind Nebula there.
With the long
I'm sure
hair
somebody
there,
does.
Yeah.
But then they dropped this new one here with the original group just fighting this thing that is called an obelisk. So I wanted to kind of get your thoughts on these two images. Is this what you're excited about? Because I know you and I are both pretty big Guardians fans. Is this more of, what you're looking for?
I think it'll be cool. I like the obelisk deal. That's neat.
Yeah.
But how are they going to kill that?
I don't know, man. Remember Rocket made that thing called the Hadron... is it Hadron Enforcer? Hadron... Yeah, I think that's what it is.
There we go, if they shoot it with that, but I don't see it.
Yeah, I don't know. They can't show it in this shot, right? Because it'd be too good.
Sure.
But Rocket will probably make some sort of sweet thing, and they'll throw Baby Groot in there or something. Also, Baby Groot looks really happy in this shot, and people were criticizing the picture for that or just talking about it. And James Gunn had mentioned at one point, he's like, well, he's kind of have a happy-go-lucky kind of guy. He's kind of oblivious, as Groot has been in the past movies. You kind of talk about one thing, and Groot's just kind of doing his own little...
I think Baby Groot's stupid.
You think Baby Groot's stupid? Joe, why do you think Baby Groot's stupid? Please, enlighten us.
I'm over it.
You're Don't you want like an I am Groot?
Oh god, I'll puke.
Do you think by the end of the film he'll be back to full size? I'd be kind of surprised if he wasn't.
Yeah, like he's gonna step in a puddle and just...
Yeah, exactly. They just had to give him some water or something. But yeah, I don't know. I'm thinking that this shot we're seeing here with all of them fighting this guy, this seems like an opening scene to me, Joe. Maybe midway through, but I'm guessing this is like they were mercenaries or they were doing something and they had a job and they're like, all right, go kill this super monster, and they're like, all right, cool.
Zoe Saldana.
Joe, focus in. Zoe's
Sorry.
beautiful, but we love her. But what do you think? Is this beginning of the movie, end of the movie? What are you feeling?
Right around the climax, towards the end.
Oh, really? You think?
Yep.
You think they're gonna show concept art of the final battle?
I think it's gonna be no, not the final battle. I think it's gonna be something leading up to the ultimate part.
Okay.
Like kind of like Pirates of the Caribbean, where the Kraken is Davy Jones's, puppet, so to speak.
The Kraken was kind of like the climax of Dead Man's Chest, I think, the second movie.
Sure, I guess. Yeah.
Remember, he eats old Captain Jack after Captain Jack jumps inside of him. Very strange. But yeah, I don't know. I feel like it's gonna be that. I feel like it's gonna be in the beginning, because I kind of want to see that. I think that's one thing I love a lot about a sequel, Joe, is that I love seeing like a team that's already established, already doing something, kind of like Avengers: Age of Ultron. The first thing we really see of the group is they're fighting as a unit. It's not like, oh, we need to go do this mission. It's like, yeah, we're in the mission now. Like, we're killing people right now. Like,
sure.
And I like that. I love just like off to the races. You're like, all right, go. Here we go. We already established it. Let's go.
That's legit.
Yeah. One thing I do really want in this movie, Joe, is are you familiar with the song "Whistle While You Work" from, I believe, Snow White?
Yeah.
You know what I'm talking about? I want Yondu to whistle a bunch at one scene, because I've heard there's supposed to be like a really cool scene with Yondu, and if you guys remember him, he's the blue guy from the last movie who controls this little arrow by whistling, and he also has this kind of augmenter thing like in the top of his head that glows red when he's using it. I would love a scene where he just like takes out like 1,000 people, but it's to the tune of "Whistle While You Work." I think that'd be a great Disney Easter egg, man. They wouldn't have to reference it outright, but it would be real cool. I'm just saying.
Copyright. Oh wait, no, it's Marvel. Yeah, so they can do it.
And Peter Quill would be able to like kind of show him space stuff. So maybe he like fell in love with Snow White at one moment. There's just like it's a VHS playing in his office at one point, and then he just starts doing that later on. That would be a sick Easter egg, man. That would be beautiful. I don't know. I'm looking forward to it. The other big thing about the movie is that Kurt Russell, who is amazing, will be playing Peter Quill's, Star-Lord's father, Ego, the Living Planet. I don't know exactly how they're going to do this, Joe, because I don't think he's going to be a living planet the entire time. I'm sure they're going to have him like be like a humanoid at some point, because obviously this entity had to kind of meet Peter's mother in the first place, and like a planet, really. He's like floated down to Earth. He's like, hello.
Don't mind my gravitational forces.
Exactly. Are you just drawn to me? Oh, see, these are good planet one-liners or pickup lines. But are you excited about Kurt Russell? Are you a big fan of him?
No. I mean, I know he's good and all that, but
have you seen Tombstone?
Actually, I have not.
What? All right, we have to remedy that. Have you seen Sky High?
Never heard of that one.
Underrated gem from Disney where a bunch of high schoolers, you learn to be a superhero at high school. But the high school is up on this floating like structure way up in the sky, so every day your school bus has to fly you up to school. And this kid, the kid of the two most powerful superheroes in the world, doesn't have any superpowers to start off with. So you're either a hero to start off with or a sidekick. And he gets put into the sidekick group.
Oh, that's bull crap.
It's pretty good, man. Like, it's a pretty solid film, I gotta say.
I'd be put into the villain group.
You'd love what is his? War and Peace, I think his name is. He's the guy who like shoots fireballs and stuff, but he's kind of emo. He's pretty great.
He's kind of emo. I'm not emo, I'm evil.
Oh my gosh. It's a good movie. It's like the best Disney Channel type movie you'd ever see, but I think it even came out to theaters maybe? I don't know. Check it out. I want to hear about your Sky High love. Tweet at me later on, Echo Critical, if you love Sky High. It's a great movie. But yeah, so you're not a big Kurt Russell fan. Well, maybe you just haven't seen a lot of things with him in it.
That's
like,
probably the problem.
Yeah, I just saw Hateful Eight, and I just don't like Tarantino. And he's really, like, Kurt Russell's okay in that movie, but he doesn't get as much screen time as I think he probably deserves.
Kurt Russell, for some reason I always think of Russell Crowe.
Not Russell. Kurt Russell and Gladiator would have been kind of interesting, though. something to think about. Something to ponder. But yeah, so Joe, I want your hype level for Guardians of the Galaxy 2 right now. Where are you standing? Because that comes out this May, which means they're putting a lot of love and faith in this particular brand.
I like the first one quite a bit, so I'll say on a pumped up level from 1 to 10. I'm probably about a good 7.5.
Sure, nice. That's pretty good.
Yeah.
Is 1 being like completely like apathetic and not caring, and 10 is like I'm gonna lose my mind?
Yeah, exactly. 10 is
okay,
like
perfect.
I'm skipping work for the next 8 months.
Like you're only talking when people ask you questions in Guardians of the Galaxy speech. Like you just kind of like they're like, so Joe, how are you doing? You're like Yondu. They're like, no, Joe, how's it going? You're like Nova Prime. Like, yeah.
No, sorry.
Are you trying to whistle while you work?
I was trying to.
Do. We're gonna get flagged, Joe. But yeah, no, I'm really excited too. I probably say I'm like right around an 8. I just rewatched it for that video I did. Which, if you haven't seen it, comparing Guardians of the Galaxy the first to Suicide Squad the first, which I'm glad I'm sure there'll be another Suicide Squad down the line. So check that out if you haven't already. But I'm really excited about Guardians. And Joe, you said you liked Guardians. Was there anything in particular that you liked or didn't like maybe about that first film?
Well, for some reason that one seemed to warrant itself towards humor a lot more.
Yeah.
And I was okay with it. Like, I mean, if you've got a freaking talking raccoon in your movie, I can put up with a little bit of humor, you know? Which
yeah.
Yeah, it was cool. They did a good job on the whole space thing. It didn't feel too wacky.
Sure, yeah, I know what you mean.
Yeah, overall, I don't know, it was pretty badass too, you know? Like, I like the character Zoe Saldana plays
Gamora.
Yeah, Gamora. I liked her a lot, and I don't think it's just because Zoe Saldana's hot, even as a green woman.
Yeah.
There was something cool about her, the way she acted, and the fight scenes were good. And they even threw in a little bit of romance in there. So
yeah, but it wasn't like overly done. It wasn't it wasn't like her
subtle.
character was just there for. I mean, there are poems like where it's not subtle, where they're about to kiss or whatever. But they don't she's not like just there for him.
Mm-hmm.
The thing I like about her too, Joe, is that as opposed to Black Widow, who I know she's like a lethal killer and all that stuff. Like for some odd reason, I buy that Gamora can like fight all these things and not die.
Yeah,
like she's
more like an elf from Lord of the Rings or something.
Yeah, that's a really good comparison, Joe. And like I think in the comics she's also known as like the deadliest woman in the universe or something, because she's like just straight up lethal. And I'm like, oh, that's cool. Mm-hmm. So I hope we get more of her just wrecking shop. But so Joe, you say you don't really like Star Wars too much, but Guardians is okay. Is it because, you know, it's not as fleshed out as Star Wars? Is it not as imposing? It's not as like worldwide phenomenon as Star Wars is? Get to the bottom of this.
I like that it's a group of characters.
Sure, like an ensemble. Okay.
Yeah, and it's a little more... Ooh, that's a tough question. It's almost like I'd have to sit down and watch both and then go, which one's better and why. And going off of memory, I can't do it justice, but...
Well, Star Wars has like 7 movies out now, and, you know, Guardians only has 1. If we got to 7 Guardian movies, then you're like, all right, that'd be a lot of Guardians movies, by the way.
Yeah.
That'd be maybe too many. I would say, probably. They run out of 80s music to listen to. I gotcha.
That's a good question. I'm gonna have to think on that.
That's fine. Think on him.
Something about Star Wars. I don't know. Star Wars is good in its own right. Some of the older ones I've seen little snippets here and there, and it's just like, okay. But
sure, you're just not impressed anymore.
Yeah,
it was impressive for its time. I get that.
Yeah, I feel like
story.
It's like, okay, let's keep going with it forever and ever. Is it ever going to end?
Sure.
Are we going to keep going back to the beginning? I mean, we already know how this ends up.
Yeah, that's true. And that's why it's nice now, because we don't know where it's going anymore. You know, that was like the prequels I thought were kind of cool, because like, all right, we got to get to 4, but now it's like they can go anywhere they want.
Yeah.
So, Yeah. But yeah, you're right. Guardians, getting back to your point, they are just kind of badass, but they're also funny. And there's a lot of lines that still make me chuckle, even though I know they're coming up in the movie. Like, I probably brought this up last time, but in the beginning, Star-Lord's like, I'm Star-Lord, and the guy's like, who? And then later on, he runs into that same guy, and he's like, Star-Lord, and he just goes, finally. Like, it's just, he's finally got it. Yeah. I just think that's so funny. But also, like, you get a rocket with a gun standing on top of a tree, and they're just screaming and shooting. Like, that's amazing. Like, I don't know how you make that scene.
Yeah, they do put cool scenes like that in there, which really, I like that a lot.
I've watched that scene 100 times in a row, Joe, and I would probably still get goosebumps. Like, every time he gets the gun, he's like, oh, yeah. Is Bradley Cooper as a raccoon?
Yeah. Bradley Cooper brings that raccoon to life. I'll give him credit.
Which, from the first time I saw that guy back in Wedding Crash, I was like, this guy sucks. And then he was like in Hangover. I'm like, all right, he's going to be like the bro guy or whatever. But he's really coming to his own doing other things. Yeah. And in that movie especially, when Peter Quill is kind of like, oh, you're like a talking raccoon. He's like, what's a raccoon, Yeah. And technically he's not one, but he's like, there's the only thing in this galaxy, like, there's nothing in this galaxy like me except me, He's like, I'm the only guy.
Give me a background on him. He was a man, but he was put in a raccoon body somehow or something.
He comes, I'm going to probably have to double check this while you're talking about something, but I'm pretty sure he comes from another planet that they all look like raccoons, but he was augmented on. That's why he's got all the stuff in his back.
Yeah.
And then, like, later on when he gets drunk, he actually, like, kind of talks about it. But he got, like, basically, like, ripped apart and put back together a ton of times, and now he's, like, really super intelligent. He's very good at, like, creating weapons, and he's really good at technology and stuff. One thing I will mention, though, I really like about that movie is they kind of tease at backstories, but they don't show you anybody's except for kind of Star-Lord's when he was a kid. And I kind of like having that mystery as opposed to something like Suicide Squad that kind of was like, here's your backstory in like 2 minutes, and we gotta go. It's like, we might get to Drax's backstory, but we might never actually see it. He talks about it. His wife and his daughter were killed by Thanos, and he's like, I'm gonna, and Ronan, he's like, I'm gonna kill these guys.
Yeah.
It's like, okay, I would love to see that scene, but let's just keep going. Well, maybe we'll see it one day.
Yeah, exactly. Leave a little mystery
get to it when we get to it. Yeah. Plus, that'd be fun in like future installments if they're like, oh, we don't know exactly how much stuff we have for this plot, but let's just do some of Rocket's stuff, and Rocket's story will tie into this new villain or whatever. Plus, Joe, we gotta get Venom, Agent Venom or whatever, and get the Venom on the team. Oh my gosh! And then go to the planet full of Venom symbiotes. It'd be ridiculous. It's coming, Joe. Just down the pipeline a bit.
You really think that Venom or the symbiote will be featured in Guardians of the Galaxy some way, somehow?
Yeah. One of the, I think it was current members or one of the really recent members was, I don't know if it was Flash, but it was that Agent Venom type of guy where it's like, he looks like a soldier, like just a ripped dude with a Venom outfit on, and he uses guns and stuff. And yeah, I'm like, and he has a hard time, like he's very good, like a good match for Venom. He doesn't like lose control all the time, but yeah, and then they go to the planet where Venom comes from, or those symbiotes come from. So it's like a black, gooey planet full of gross little biters.
Little biters.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that I would love that. And plus, now that we know that the Guardians are confirmed to be in Infinity War in one way or the other, hopefully we'll get more tie-in, and maybe Spidey will talk to these guys, and that will be a through line. Let's get to it. Let's just integrate all the movies, baby. Oh man, too excited.
Dude, when Venom shows up, I'm gonna lose my mind. Then my pumped up level will go from a 7.5 to maybe a 10-ish.
10-ish, maybe 11. Joe's like, and they're like, it's actually gonna be rated R. Joe's like, yeah. Just 2.5 hours of a dude just ripping people in half. Yeah, I have to check the Venom stuff and the Rocket Raccoon stuff. If I'm wrong about any of this, tweet me. I might try to look it up here, but we'll see. But anyway, yeah, so Guardians, man, I'm excited for it. And we'll talk more about the Guardians down the road here once we get to know a little bit more. I don't want to know everything, but I'm still pretty excited about it, all things considered. So, Joe, I know I've been talking a lot this episode. Sometimes we do this where I talk a lot and then you don't talk a lot. But Titanfall 2, I played this pre-alpha past weekend. We're each going to probably play it this weekend. What kind of questions do you have about the game? Because I want you to kind of interview me, if you will. If there's anything you're like, all right, how does this feel? How does that feel? And I can...
The grapple hook. I hear you can traverse terrain pretty quickly with the grapple hook, right? How does it feel? How does it perform? And is it constant?
Joe, and to any other listeners and just people who maybe tune in on the stream, like on Twitch, people probably know I'm a grapple hook enthusiast. I would like that to be known. I would like that to be part of my little paragraph that describes.
He has his own at home.
I wish. I would kill myself. It would be instantaneous, probably, because I'd grapple onto a wall and just slam into it. It wouldn't be because I wanted to. But starting with like the Arkham games, I was like, oh, that grapple's pretty good. And then they put it into Just Cause 3, and that was really good, and I really like that. Joe, at first I was like, I'm not sure how I feel about this grapple, because what happens is you shoot it, it'll hit something, and there's a little bit of a delay, but then you kind of take off. So what you can do is you kind of, go from point A to point B, or you can like shoot at the top of a tower and then kind of swing around like Spider-Man, or you can, you can shoot like straight up above the tower and then like shoot a guy on the way down. They need to do a Spider-Man game with this grapple physics, because man, I am addicted. There were the other things you could have besides the grapple hook. I never I tried maybe once. They got to give it to everybody because it's too good, man. Like, to get to a Titan, grapple over to it.
Yeah.
Like, to get to an objective, just grapple that way. And what it is, Joe, is you have like a bar, like for your grapple meter and your grenades now too. It's like a cooldown, so you can use like 2 grapples in a row, like really quick. But then you have to wait for it to charge back up. With a grenade, you throw like 1, and then you have to wait like a little bit, and then you get another one. So you have infinite grenades, but you can't spam them,
Sure.
But with the grapple, you can kind of do 2 in a row really quick, or you can do 1, kind of put yourself in a new position, wait for a bit, and then kind of use another one. And like, if you're kind of smart about it, you can have your grapple pretty much ready to go a lot at a time. So yeah, grapple hook is incredible. Also, it's like, oh yeah, I saw Drew playing, and we were playing together. I'm like, hey Drew, can I have a ride? So I just kind of grapple over to him, and I'm just on his back, just like that, just
That's
ready to
cool.
go.
Yeah.
Oh,
so good. I like the way you take down Titans. So you grapple to their back, you pull out a power cell, which you keep on you. You can go give that to one of your teammates, or you can hold on to it for your Titan, and it gives you an extra health bar in your Titan. But then you go back to them, and you can grapple back to their back or jump on their back, and then you hop up in there. Instead of shooting and unloading a magazine of bullets into their modem or whatever, you drop a grenade into that power cell slot and put a cap on it. Right? That's cool.
And then if you do that like a third time, I think, like if you were just a pilot alone, I think they're already in a doom state after you grenade them, but then if you do that one more time, it will just outright blow up a Titan. So it takes longer in that respect, but it's more, I think, efficient, kind of.
Yeah, do they still have a nuke feature when you eject from a Titan?
Not that I've seen yet. The nuclear ejection wasn't there. Also, you don't pop up as high as you used to, which I was like, all right, it's fine. But at the same time, I was like, I kind of miss going up, like, I felt like 1,000 feet. You just went,
yeah, you were way up there.
I tried my best, Joe, to grapple a dude, and like midair, and if you miss with your grapple, it doesn't use it. So I'm like falling down. I'm like just shooting my grapple out, like, dude, like, come on, get him.
And you couldn't get
the grapple. Oh, I forgot to mention this. You can kill people with the grapple by doing that, but what you kind of do is, instead of like grappling to them as much, it kind of pulls them in, and you kind of like punch them or like snap their neck. And there was one really hilarious time where I grappled a dude on the other side of this like object or whatever, and I was on the other side of it, and we were both like trying to get to one another, but we couldn't, so we're held
so
there.
You're like making a sandwich with something?
Yeah, we're making a sandwich with this other thing, and like his buddy in a Titan just like that blows me away, and I'm like, no. And then I'm like, kill cam, I'm like, I look like a moron. I'm like glitching out next to this thing. I'm like, come here. There were like times Joe, I had to sneak up on somebody. I'm like, I gotta grapple him. Like, I'm gonna grapple him.
I was watching some real gameplay, and I saw a guy who's running through a building. He saw a bad guy on his left online play, and he swung, grappled him, and then just booted him, and he was dead.
I did this another really cool thing once too, where I was shooting at a person who's pretty far away, and he had no idea. He was like sniping. His buddy came in between us and like looked at me and started shooting at me, and then he like threw smoke, or somebody threw smoke. I, without thinking, grappled past the dude who started shooting at me to his buddy, and I flew past him, and I killed his buddy. Like, I jumped through the smoke, killed his buddy, and got away with it. It looked like cool. I did. It was so gratifying. Like, using that grapple to get around is just a treat. Yeah. It's so good.
So does it come with all your pilot styles, or only a certain pilot?
So it's like a perk that you got to pick. I think the other choices were like a stim pack that makes you like faster or whatever.
Oh, I'm definitely going with that.
there was one that like it made a clone of yourself. You know, like it was that decoy that we saw in the trailer. But the problem is, I don't think you go invisible. In the trailer, it shows like a guy killing the thing, and then the other guy appears from invisibility and he kills him. I don't think that's how it works, because when I would use it, people just they'd still just shoot me down. I was like, oh, they probably still knew it, like I was the real one. So I guess that's only good if you're kind of like getting chased and you're like, throw it over there, and then you just kind of wait. You're like, all right, now get him. There's something else too, but I was just like, it's not as good. Like the grapple, and people are saying that too. They're like, you gotta. Hopefully they'll incorporate it with everybody, because it just seems like it's too powerful to not have it on everyone. It doesn't seem fair if I pick that and you pick the thing that makes you faster, because it's like, I don't care how fast you are, I'm probably going to grapple the same
you'll
distance.
never grapple me, I'm too quick.
You are speedy, that's true, I couldn't grapple you. But yeah, well, okay, what else do you want to know? Come on, man, hit me with it.
I don't know. I've seen a lot on it. I guess I was curious about the nuclear ejection thing, because that was a major factor in the first game.
Sure.
Weapon choices, they probably didn't have a lot of them out just for a beta, huh?
So it seemed like they kind of had two of each kind. I didn't get the shotgun, but there was like the Spitfire LMG, but then there was like an energy LMG, which was kind of cool.
Oh.
I didn't see a ton of people using it, but I was like, all right, this is like, I'm thinking of my wish list here, Joe, and I was like, I want to have a grapple. I want to have like cool energy weapons. Like check, baby. Pretty much, I just kind of went with the standard, like the car SMG or just the straight up rifle. It's like an R102 or something like that.
Okay.
The difference here, Joe, is like you kind of like level up your gun just by using it, and then you unlock things for it. Whereas the last game, it was kind of like, all right, kill like 40 grunts, and then you get the suppressor or whatever like that. It seems like you level up just by using the gun itself, not so much your pilot, but your pilot also levels up too.
Okay.
There was a lot going on with their kind of like the upgrade screen or at the end of a match would be like, oh my gosh. But there seemed like a pretty good number of weapons. I think they might, I don't know if they're going to add some more in this next weekend, but it was pretty good. The one thing I didn't get to yet was like they have the auto pistols, the only pistol you can have, but you have to use you can either use a currency to get these things, Joe, or you can just use the gun to level it up. So I think the trick is like, let's say you want to buy something specifically for one gun, but you're already using another one. You can just use the credits that you might accrue from something like that, or doing enough of these kind of like little objective things. Not the objectives of the match, but like little things to get you the in-game currency, if you will.
Okay.
To just outright buy like a scope for your sniper rifle that you wouldn't have maybe gotten otherwise.
Oh.
So
physics. We all know that Titanfall is like the king of anti-gravity, seamless, flawless, flowing physics.
Sure.
Still true? Has it gotten better or about the same?
Joe, I don't know how it's possible. I don't know how it is. I don't know what kind of deal they made, what kind of black magic they're using. But the thing is like smoother than it was before. I don't know if I could go back to the first one, because it's like just so good. It's just so on point. And they said they were having some issues with it. Some people were complaining about some of the wall running was doing some weird stuff or all this other stuff. I was like, I didn't notice that at all, man. It seemed just like, and the level design is so perfect, Joe, that you see stuff and you're like, I'm sure they want me to kind of wall run and then jump to here and jump to here. And then when you do it, it's just like perfect. Like you don't have to, it's not hard at all. It's just the way it's supposed to be. It's great, man. It's even better, I think, than last time. It's just so... The mobility in this game is the best I've ever had in a game. The best. It's so good. And this is just from this first like few days. I was just like, it's so good. Like, why are every game should be or have something like this? So good. So, yeah, it was on point.
So
the one thing you haven't asked,
map design, good stuff.
Right now,
how big?
So they're pretty big. One of them was pretty flat, which people were complaining about, but the people who are in charge of the game were like, yeah, we're letting you play like 2 maps out of however many we actually have. And this one was kind of like an open battlefield. But both of them seemed pretty similar to start off with. Kind of like open, like in the like almost mountains, and they kind of had like hills and grass and stuff. But they also had like structures that you could run into, like metal structures. Okay. But people were hoping for more urban environments. I'm like, oh, they got to. Last game they had some great ones where like as a pilot you almost felt like stronger than some of the Titans, because you're like, I can be up on like the 3rd floor of this building, and you're like just kind of hopping around doing stuff. So we'll see. This next weekend we're supposed to get another one. So I'm excited to see what that entails. Yeah.
Okay.
But you're not asking the one question, Joe. It's in the name of the game. I can't believe you haven't asked yet.
Well, okay, the Titans. How did you like them? And did you get to try them all out?
There's only two. There's Ion and Scorch, and I heard that Scorch is actually a variant of the Ogre from the last game.
Yeah, it looks that way from the gameplay. So
Ion could have been too, or maybe it was an Atlas. But so the dashes, I don't think there was like a lot with either of them. There was only, it seemed like one, maybe two with the Ion. Ion was kind of weird because its gun is pretty good. So it just kind of shoots like a regular kind of like energy beam pretty quickly. Not a beam, but like little pulses. I don't know if you call it energy bullets.
Gotta reload a lot with it?
Not too much. But when you kind of zoom in and you kind of look, when you zoom in a bit, it turns from this kind of column for like the shooting reticle to a sideways, like a rectangle more so. So you're kind of like shooting 3 at a time. So that's really good for picking off pilots and stuff.
Okay.
I found that was pretty good. He throws out these tripwire mines, which throws out 3 like mines that are all connected by lasers. And then if you trip that, like they all explode. Which is pretty cool for killing pilots and stuff. I found out the hard way. I was like, if I shoot, I was like, maybe it's just the lasers that cut people down. So I tried shooting when I was kind of nearby one of the structures that was housing the lasers. Then that blew up and I died. And I was like, okay,
really?
Okay. And then he has this kind of Predator, shoulder-mounted cannon that you could bring up, and it's like super duper accurate. So you have to be really good with it. But it's like, and it can charge up, and then you can just kind of aim it, just blow somebody away. So it's really good. That one's good for sniping pilots if you want to. And then its ultimate ability is the Iron Man Unibeam. Basically, it charges up this gigantic red laser, and it just blasts it out, just drops stuff. Very cool.
But so, which one did you prefer, him? Well, go into the flame one, and then
I was gonna say, well, it's a good transition because I preferred Scorch more. So his basic attack, he had to reload with him a bit more, but he would shoot like this kind of like basically like a Molotov cocktail, Joe, where he'd shoot it and it would hit an area and there'd be like fire damage all over.
Okay.
He had another one that kind of reminds me of the Reinhardt Flame Strike, where you just kind of, it's like attack like a melee style, but it's like an arc of fire just goes in a straight line for a long ways.
Okay.
And then the icing on the cake with him was the ignition gas. So what you do is you kind of throw out this gas in an area, and it doesn't do anything until you shoot it with your primary fire, or you hit it with your flame strike or your ultimate ability, and it starts up the entire area on fire. And I found it was really useful, Joe, because I would be fighting a Titan, I would shoot it over to like their left, and then I would kind of flank them from their right, so they'd back up into it, and then I would start it all on fire, and then they'd be caught in this flame, this just inferno that was engulfing them. Super
pretty
good.
Effective against other Titans in fire.
It did seem that way. The other thing, I wasn't a huge fan of his special ultimate ability. He kind of takes both his hands, slams down, and there's just like this huge like wall of flame that goes straight out. It does quite a bit of damage, and it goes a little ways, and it can ignite the gas or whatever. But I wasn't as overwhelmed. I just like the combo nature of the character, just kind of being like, all right, get in this area, use the gas, and start everybody on fire.
Okay. Because
it was really good to take out pilots with that, and if you hit a pilot with his primary fire once, it's a one-shot kill. It hits them and they're like on fire dead. It's like boop, like done.
What if you hit a Titan? Oh, a pilot.
A pilot, yeah. That'd be so cheap.
Like, what?
Everybody run, it's Scorch.
It makes no sense.
But it takes 20 hits to kill a pilot.
Well, it sounds like if you're the laser style Ion, you can shoot the Scorch from a distance, and Scorch can't do much about it because he doesn't have distance attack, right?
Yeah, exactly. He has a little bit, but you're right. It's kind of like we talked about before, these Titans kind of having varied abilities and saying, like, all right, I can kind of tell at a distance it's this guy, so I should probably either A, get up close to him where he can't do as well, or B, I need to stay where I am and try to hold him off at a distance. Have some... Yeah, have a length between us here. So, yeah, we'll see how that works with 6 different Titans if they're pretty easy to recognize after a while. One thing they touted, they're like, oh my gosh, like each one has a different personality. I didn't really hear a different personality between the two. It wasn't like one was like, oh, the Scorch is like, here's what you gotta do, kid, or something like that. AI voice, or whatever. But they all seemed pretty just kind of regular, like, welcome back, pilot, kind of stuff like that. So... yeah, but man. Oh, I forgot to mention these two things, too. I forgot defensive-wise. Ion has the Vortex Shield from the last game. Okay. The one where you kind of hold up Magneto style. What Scorch has, I didn't use it as much, but I probably should have. It's a thermal shield or whatever, and he puts up his hand in the same fashion. He will just melt bullets when they try to get close to him. and he can kind of El Diablo it, where if he gets close enough to pilots or titans, that does damage. And I didn't really get to use that much, but I think I saw Drew use it once, where he kind of put it up at the last second when like a pilot was going right to him, and he just.
That's cool.
I didn't see him turn into goop, but I just assumed that he did.
Yeah,
so I was like, that'd be cool. Just like backs him doing the corner, like, here's my hand. Just burn him down. Yeah. I was like, And the cool thing, when you talk about the battery and stuff before, like they were saying it really promotes team play, which I'm excited about, because in those games, my biggest complaint, Joe, when we talk about these other games, like when we play Call of Duty together, it's like we're on the same team, but we're not really typically working together. And Overwatch is all about teamwork. This seems kind of like a happy medium where you can go do your own thing, but if you want, you can really help out your buddies. So it's like, oh, Jimmy, do you have like a battery pack, because my shields are down and my health isn't looking too good.
Yeah, which is cool. I like that aspect.
And jump up and health you, put some health on you. But the other thing too is that when you doom a Titan, it doesn't go to like full death anymore. You could like still fight with just like a tiny chunk of health if you wanted to. Kind of. So you have more chances to stay alive. You just don't have the regenerating shields because of the whole battery pack system, which I was like, oh, this is kind of cool. I kind of like. That's fine.
Okay.
Work as a team.
All right, that's cool.
But yeah, man. Game is.
So now, how many Titans are we gonna see? We got these two, and then what? We got a Strider type version that skates around, and then he's got a sword for close combat. And
that's the Ronin. That's the Ronin character, or the Ronin class.
But we don't know of any others, do we?
No, we don't. My guess, Joe, is that they're just going to basically do 2 variations now on every one of the old Titans. So it'll be like 2 Atlases, 2 Striders, 2 Ogres. Okay. Would be my guess.
Okay, so you think in the end we'll see about 6?
Sure. I think they said 6.
Okay,
and they were talking about how some Titans, people were complaining that the Titans didn't have as much health or defensive abilities. And they're like, well, some of the other Titans we have are very defensive focused. And they have like defensive upgrades and things like that, where they're just trying to like more Stonewall-ish type.
Okay.
And I was like, okay, cool.
So
like you and I, when we partner up now, I could be like, all right, Joe, you take Scorch, and I'll take this other guy, and hopefully you and I can just like be this like
one defends the other a little bit.
Yeah.
So the perks that you can attach, do they still have the electric smoke and stuff to get pilots off you?
They did. I didn't use that on my Titan, but I think they still do have that and stuff like that.
Otherwise, it seems like you're real vulnerable.
Yeah, I think they still have electric smoke. I saw that in a video, but I didn't have it myself. So a lot of the time, if someone got on my back, I was kind of like, "Hey, Drew," or somebody else, would be like, "Can you get this guy on my back, please?" But it does take a while. Yeah, but it's not the same as the old game. If you didn't have electric smoke, where like they just sit on you and just gun you down forever. They just like, you're just like, oh my gosh, like get off my back, man, literally. So. Yeah, but another cool thing, Joe, I forgot to mention, is that the some of the grenades that they have. Which I think Arc Grenade makes a return, which I kind of forgot about. I think it's an Electric Smoke Grenade now, Joe.
Oh, yeah. And then they have one that's like a small black hole grenade that like draws people to each other, and you can gun them all down in one spot.
So what I did, Joe, is this thing is called the Gravity Star, and you throw it like a shuriken, so it kind of shoots in like a straight line. Yep. And basically what it does is you can still shoot. It's basically just like that Zarya ult from Overwatch. And if you're not familiar with that, it pulls you into an area, and you can still shoot, but you're stuck in this area. So there were 2 great examples of it. There was one, this match that we were playing, this objective was like you kill people and you turn money into these specific little bank areas. And what people would do is kind of hide out at these bank areas and like wait for you to come there and then get you. I saw this one dude's leg underneath this bank thing, so I throw the little gravity star at him, and it hits him, brings him up into the air, and I just gun him down, and he thought he was completely safe. Another time, I caught a guy who's just about to jump off a wall run. He's jumping and gets pulled back from the wall, and then I gun him down. And I was like, "Oh, that." So
you don't actually have to hit him; it's just a proximity deal, right?
Yeah, it's a very small proximity, but you do have to be kind of accurate. But yeah, you don't have to hit him directly. Okay. So, yep, and then just regular frags, which I didn't really use too much. I was like,
cool.
But yeah, electric smoke I thought was even cooler because it's not only just the arc from the last game, but it's like that kind of the opacity that you can kind of run through, and people are like, where'd he go? So
yeah. So it cloaks you, and it also does damage.
Kind of, yeah. I still didn't see the cloak from the last game, which is just like, you'd hit left bumper, like, I'm cloaked. Which I thought was really good against Titans, because you'd be like, all right, I'm gone. They'd be like, all right, where'd you go?
Yeah.
So I don't know if they'll bring that back or not. But again, this is just a first little slice of the pie. So, yeah, man. I'm trying to think of anything else. It's just great. It's real good. I want to play it this weekend with you. You got to get it. Get it, we'll play it. We'll stream it. It'll be great.
Yeah, all right.
If you have time, we got to. You'll be like, oh my gosh.
It'll probably have to be Sunday evening because I don't think I'll be around this weekend.
You're killing me.
Yeah.
That's all right. We could do that Sunday. Hey, if we do it that way, then I'm probably be able to stream from home because I'm gone this week. But I can stream and people can see my face.
Yeah, they got to see the looker, the pretty looker.
That's me. I'm the pretty looker.
No,
grappling hook enthusiast and pretty looker.
I was trying to think. I always call eyes lookers because I think it's funny.
Oh, sure.
So,
that's cute.
Whatever. Never mind. Then I'm gonna.
Anyway,
if it's cute, I'm done.
Fair enough. Joe, are there any other questions you have about Titanfall 2 while we're talking about it?
Not really. I think I'm kind of up to speed on it. I'm insanely pumped for it. I love the first one, and it sounds like they've only improved it for this one. So,
sure,
bring it, baby.
Yeah. Quick side note about other first-person shooters. I did see it. I hate that they do this to me. I did see a trailer for some of the desert stuff in Battlefield 1 with two guys in a Jeep, and it reminded me of our Battlefield 4 days of Little Joe. And I was like, looks pretty sick.
Dude, I'll get it first, and if it's good, you gotta get in on it.
I think you should review it. I think it'd be great.
Is there gonna be a beta and everything that I can get in?
Oh, I'm sure.
Well,
they have to
if
test
there's
stuff.
gonna be one, you should try it out too, at least.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. We'll definitely. It'll be like Star Wars all over again, but hopefully better. Anyway, Joe. So now that we're done talking about Titanfall, we're gonna get into this next segment of the show, which I like to call and you like to call
Timekillers.
That's right. Welcome to Timekillers. And if you aren't familiar with what Timekillers is, it's what we've been playing, what we've been
Come on, Jimmy. We're on a schedule. Let's get after it. Timekillers. We're not killing so much time here. I'm just kidding.
If you know what that cry is from, what movie, it's a comedy. Anyway.
Damn you, Bernice!
Yeah, super good. But Timekillers. Joe, please start off. What are your Timekillers this week? What have you been watching? What have you been playing? What cookbooks have you been reading?
Well, I finally finished Paula Dean's Southern Butterworth.
That a boy. How long did it take you?
Well, it's about 800 pages thick. It's like a cooking Bible. In the print,
sure.
The print is small, and there are no pictures.
Yeah, I hate books without pictures.
The main ingredient in everything was butter, and you start out with butter, fill everything in between, and then you end with butter. No, I'm just kidding. All right. No, I really haven't been into much, man. I haven't had time. Wedding recently that I was in took up some time. Then I just moved apartments, so man, I haven't even played video games in like a week or two. So it's been busy.
I got you covered.
Get after
I got stuff
it,
we
pal.
can talk about. Just started playing Darksiders 2 on last week's Throwback Thursday, and if you don't know what that is, every Thursday in the afternoon, I try to play a little bit of an older game. One day it'll be much older once we get the tech for it. So, but yeah, so I was playing Darksiders 2. Great game. It's in 1080p. It's not 60 frames per second, which is fine, but still amazing game. I love it a lot. Looking forward to Darksiders 3. Watched 2 films recently. Saw Terminator Genesis all the way through.
Oh.
And I'm not a huge Terminator fan. I haven't really seen the first or all of the second one, but it was still a pretty good time, and I kind of understood most of the stuff they were talking about.
Yeah.
And it was corny. It had its stupid moments, but dang if Arnold Schwarzenegger is still just like, that guy's kicking it. Like, he's still just like, I'm just doing it.
Yeah, they must put like a tummy tuck girdle on him and send
I don't
him
know
out
what they
there.
do. Yeah, it's cool though. And a little bit of a spoiler alert, if you haven't seen it, he does get kind of an upgrade at the very end of the movie, which I was like, for a non-fan, I was still like, that's pretty sweet. Like, it's like, cool. What else? Except that, again, we should talk about this sometime, Joe. We should do an episode on like movies that were ruined by the trailer, but we'll get to that later. And the other movie I just watched was Mr. Holmes. It's the story about Sherlock Holmes, portrayed by Ian McKellen. Came out a little while ago, and it's a 93-year-old Sherlock Holmes kind of fulfilling his last case, like doing his last case before he dies. Thankfully, spoiler, he does not die in the film. Ian McKellen is such a good actor. He basically plays 3 different timelines in this movie, and it's super duper good. Like, the guy crushes it.
Oh, cool.
It's so good. And it talks about a little bit about the real Sherlock Holmes versus like the fake one, and he kind of deals with that, the persona of this other person that people are like, you're not the real Sherlock Holmes. The real Sherlock Holmes wears this type of hat and he has a pipe and stuff. And he talks about, he's like, I never wore that hat and I don't really like a pipe. And he's just like, but Watson, his buddy who wrote all these stories about him, presumably had made this stuff up. And so he went to go see a movie about himself at one point, and cool. It was kind of funny. But yeah, man, Ian McKellen, I might get lambasted, or I don't know if that's the right word for it, but people hate me for it, but I think he's like my favorite actor. He's like the greatest. I love him. But anyway, that does it for Timekillers. But now we get to go into questions, Joe. Mm-hmm. We got some good questions this week. Questions. Let's start with a little bit of a simpler one and then work our way up. So Diego, he asks, Echo Critical, #CriticalPodcast. What is your favorite type of music? And I think this is for both of us. So, Joe, I'm just going to limit you to like one, we'll just say one musical style, and just give a band maybe that goes with that style.
All right, metalcore. Of Mice and Men. Can I give some others?
No, that's it. Because I know if I let you go off with this, we're going to be here for like 3 hours.
I like Issues, Falling in Reverse.
All right. For me, I kind of
A Day to Remember.
I like just metal, and I guess they would technically be like new metal, but I would say that if I had to pick a band, I'd probably go with Korn. I know it's a weird choice, and they're always different, but something about that band.
Same here, man. I gotta admit, metalcore, I enjoy more of it, but when it comes to metal music, Korn is like the creme de la creme of all music for me. But yeah. I had to pick metalcore because I listen to more of it, higher quantities.
Sure. Nothing wrong with that.
But yeah, Korn, totally agree. Good stuff.
What quick description? What's the difference between like maybe like a metal and a metalcore? What's the core?
Well, people get down on the whole metalcore term because it's more like I guess you call it more like new age metal sort of deal. It's a little more. It's not quite like so
new metal.
Yeah, well, it's not quite so. I mean, it is different in a way. Like when you compare Slipknot, Korn, maybe like sure. your Five Finger Death Punch, it's more like driving.
It's like punk meets metal is kind of what I get from it.
Metalcore, like, punk meets metal. Yeah, probably a little bit more.
Yeah, because like the singing can be a little more punk style, a little more like high pitched, a little more like I'm not. I know it sounds mean, but kind of whiny-ish at times.
Yeah, maybe even like a little emo flair, but. I don't feel that's appropriate because it's not. Sure. It's not necessarily emo, but like
sure.
Another good example, Beartooth, really good band. I mean, I almost just classify them as metal. It's just a little bit more of a different style, sure. You know. So I feel like it all belongs in that metal group. It's just different. Like a lot of when people refer to metal, it's more like low pitched voices, like rah, 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 you know. Whereas you get a little bit more of a variation with the metalcore stuff. Sure. A lot of times you'll get bands they'll have somebody that's like lead vocalist who actually sings melodies and choruses or whatever, but then you got that second filler that does more of the yelling or screaming type verses, which I often find appealing. So
yeah, sure, yeah, I can only take so much of if I can't understand the guy too much, but I don't mind Korn scatting a bit, which is pretty great. Anyway, another question that he had I haven't included. He's asked it a few times, but he asked a while ago, like, what got us into podcasting? And I think I can answer for Joe. It's just because I forced him to. But for me, Joe and I, we have these talks all the time.
Let's get after it. So it's because we're passionate about these things, and even if we weren't podcasting, Jimmy and I would have these conversations. We just thought that sometimes our conversations are so in depth and our explanations of things and our ideas and aspirations for some of these things, we feel that they're so good. Well, this is okay. That's going wrong. We feel that they're
entertaining.
They're entertaining. I feel like people would find some value in what we have to say sometimes.
Sure.
The same thing goes for you guys. We'd feel value in the things you have to say. That's why we want you to comment. That's why we ask you for these questions every week. But sure. Things we're passionate about, and we enjoy having these conversations, and now we're just making them public. So I don't know about you, Jimmy, but what did you want to answer with?
Oh, geez, Joe, it's like the best time you ever cut me off because you basically took the words right out of my mouth.
Ba-boom!
I did have someone say this the other night, though. They're like, oh, you're just like another media reviewer. And I kind of wish everybody kind of got into it if they had the time for it, just because I think everyone has their own personal opinions and voice about these things that are just around us all the time. And I think commenting on it, regardless of how you feel about it, there's some value in that, as long as you aren't just like swearing and yelling and you have nothing to kind of contribute.
Yeah,
if you have thoughtful answers.
Yelling.
Oh, that's okay. On this show, it's all right. If you're just swearing and yelling at me, it's fine. But yeah, so thank you, Diego, for those questions. So a little bit of a long one here from Fragadin, longtime friend of the show.
No time skip.
I'm just kidding. Hey guys, my question is based on hype versus reality. When games like No Man's Sky, which Joe we talked about the other week, that kind of space exploration game, launch and leave a large group feeling rather disappointed, do we blame the marketing for over-endorsing this game or yet our own overexcitement? I feel with certain game trailers and demonstrations that they don't always in bold letters say exactly how this game is going to be on launch day. Media and game consumers are then quick to assume certain features or overall gameplay. It's one thing where a developer promises a game will have specific things, but then cuts it from the game during the last phases of production. But for No Man's Sky, it held a sense of mystery behind it until launch. So, in a case like No Man's Sky, do we blame them or the hype we built around its production? #Critical Podcast.
I don't think you can blame the marketing. Any game is going to market like crazy, and it's only good for them, and the marketing gives you that insight. But if you get overly hyped because of the marketing and you don't do your research beforehand, or maybe check out some early previews or actual gameplay video, you're going in blind. You may have assumptions about the game that aren't accurate.
Sure. And I think, the weird thing about this one in particular, Joe, is I know you haven't really been following the marketing for it. And ever since I got into video games a while ago, I've been like studying them. So it's not like I just felt bad when it would come time for like a holiday or a birthday or something. And then I get something and it just like wouldn't work with something I had. So I'd have to like be very specific with my mom or whatever and be like, I want this thing or whatever. But No Man's Sky, what they basically did, Joe, is they had little bits of information, but they kept it vague on purpose because they wanted the game to be about exploring and stuff. And now people have been playing it, and it's very repetitive. And from what they've seen in that first thing that everyone was getting a demo of way back in the day, it's just kind of like that again and again and again and again. Whereas demos typically are like, oh, this is like the first part of a game that's going to expand in different and cool ways. So, like Joe said, I think, you don't want to get overhyped on stuff like that because you can kind of let your mind run away with all the ideas that you have. And with a game like this where they're kind of like, the possibilities are endless, it's like there will never probably be a game, or at least not for a while, where that's really true. I mean, technically they are endless, where you can keep going to different worlds and seeing different things forever. Basically, there's like 18 quintillion planets, Joe.
Whoa.
Like you'd never see like a tenth of this game or whatever. You'd be like whatever. Yeah, I don't know. It's hard because the marketing people, that's their job, is to get you to buy this game. And when you look at some of the launch stuff that they have for this, like we talked about last week, is that they kind of amp you up, like you can go fight in space and do all this stuff, and it's like crazy action all the time. But like 90% of that game seems to be just kind of walking around on planets by yourself, just hanging out. I guess to answer your question, do we blame them or the hype we built around its production? I would just say,
I mean,
unfortunately,
both of them have to share responsibility.
Well, a little bit. The game developer, like they have all these ideas that they're going to be bringing in later on. I think the problem right now too is, Joe, they promised a lot of things in older interviews, and then they've since, I think they got their date maybe even got pushed up closer than they had wanted. And they're like, oh crap, we'll patch it in later. And people are like, but you said we're gonna have this and this and this. And they're like, we don't, but we want to. So I think in like a year, this game will be like the game everyone kind of wanted it to be, a little bit more so.
Yeah, that's why you never say you're gonna do something without first having it set. It's for sure gonna happen. You can't speculate or like.
Sure.
Yeah.
The other thing too is like, if you're not completely sure on a game like this, and the mystery is fun, and some people love doing that and exploring. For me, this game isn't $60 worth or $65 worth, which would actually come out to. And don't be kind of wary about your pre-orders and stuff. If you're like not sure about a game just because you're not part of the zeitgeist of day one like launch stuff, don't think that way, because your $65 is meaningful. regardless of how much money you have. And just because you want to be there on day one doesn't mean you should pay for it for the next few weeks. Where you're like, crap, I just spent
especially a game
$65
like that isn't that type that's gonna like sell out on all these locations, you know.
Sure, yeah. I mean, no game really anymore is going to do that because you just get digital copies.
Yeah, exactly.
Right?
Yeah, with the introduction of that, I mean, it's hard to, hard copies don't sell out, nor do digital. So
just, I say also try to find reviewers that you really care about. Obviously, I think Fraggedin and most of the people who stop by here are fans of the Easy Allies, and they do great reviews. So if we aren't doing a review, or heck, if we do a review of a similar or the same game, listen to both, and then just try to make a decision for yourself. Who you trust. It's not like especially where we are right now, Joe. No one's paying us big bucks to be like, all right, promote this game, be like, it's the best. Like, no one from Respawn is like, you better say Titanfall 2 is the best, Jimmy. They haven't done that yet. They will, though. I know you're listening.
Yeah, I mean, flat out, just do your research beforehand. Don't commit to a game if you know there's a slight chance that it may not live up to expectations.
Yeah, exactly. I understand, though, too, wanting to have mystery around your game, because that's the problem we have a lot with movies now, Joe, is that we kind of know like almost all of the movie before we go in, because we like try to find out as much information as possible. I think with the game, it's a little bit, it's more okay, especially for me, to like learn a little bit more about it, because there's more of a time commitment, because like 2.5 hours, that's not a lot. So if you kind of waste like half of that movie because you know it already from the trailers or stuff you looked up, then you're like, oh, that wasn't like surprising and shocking. But with a game, I think it's okay to say like, all right, I got to know the fundamentals of this game before I get into it. One other game that I could think of is like the new Zelda game, Breath of the Wild. It's kind of like he was like open world playing around. There's like a few temples here and there. And I was like, oh, there's still mystery to this game, but I don't know what else is in it. So if I'm intrigued, and that's $60 worth to me of intriguing, or $65 or whatever, also depending on the new Nintendo console, whatever that may be, that's something I might be like, all right, this is a cool thing, or this is maybe I'll get into Zelda now a little bit more so. But yeah, I would say, you kind of, it's like Joe said, it's kind of for both. You kind of blame the people who got overly hyped, and then you also have to, the marketing people, that's their job. They got to sell you these games. Mm-hmm. Like they want to be the mystery there, but it depends. Is it worth $65 to you? So I hope that answers your question. I'm sorry, there's not a perfect answer for that.
No, definitely not. But I think you did a good job.
Up to the individual. And another question that he had asked just kind of after that, he's like, is it too late to ask another question? I'm like, of course not. He said, when the two of you were but just wee lads, who were your real life heroes? # Critical Podcast. You have a real life hero, Joe?
Oh yeah, I know what you're
talking about. Back when you were a kid?
I
don't know. He said wee lads. Mine's pretty simple.
I was never
I think
a
I should
wee
probably
lad.
Go.
I wasn't born.
Second.
I just was. I came
I'm
out
still
in a
a wee
full
lad.
suit, 6 feet tall, beard.
I still need help being fed.
Of course, everybody always looks up to their father, but
not me.
Well, okay, yeah, but I guess I should have said it's more of the cliche answer,
Sure,
my dad was my hero growing up. Of course, I mean, for me, yeah, dad was the go-to, but as I got older, I started to look up to people who, especially, you're going to identify with people that are on pedestals, or people that are, maybe popular isn't the right word, but even somewhat famous, and they have a platform to speak from, sort of a deal. I've always been a fan of motocross, and Jimmy knows where I'm going with this, but Ryan Dungey, good advocate for the sport, good attitude, humble, and puts his pants on one leg at a time, just like the rest of us. But he uses his platform to do good things.
Like get on Wheaties boxes.
Well,
I'm just kidding. I saw him the other day.
Well, that's good for the sport. It's good for the sport.
Sure.
It helps grow a sport that maybe isn't as mainstream as something like football or baseball or basketball.
Yeah, sure.
So it's only better for the sport. But he also does things. He sees a broader impact
Picture.
that he can have on the world beyond the sport.
Sure.
For instance, like he organizes a charity bicycle ride for St. Jude's Children's Hospital. I went and did that because I thought it was a great cause. 100% benefits go to the actual funding of the children's medical bills and the operations that the hospital has to do. So stuff like that. That's awesome. And it's not just him. People like him. I really look up to that, or look up to people like that. So he's just an example of one. There are probably others I don't know that I'd have the same respect for, but obviously my hero, my dad, taught me a lot, raised me right, and well, I like to think he raised me right, but
I'd say so.
But
he did a good job.
But yeah, but then beyond that, I respect athletes like that do good things in the world. So, how about yourself?
I can only really think of one because he said "wee lad," so it's kind of like going back. I was like, oh, should it be like an actor or something? But he said like, he specifically says here, real life heroes. So I guess for me, kind of touching on what you said before, like the cliche thing is say your dad, but for me it's my mom, and that still holds true to this day. My parents, a little bit of backstory, get a little bit deep here for a sec. My parents split up. They divorced when I was about 12 or so, and my mom, she was incredible. Most people, especially after a very long marriage like they had, it was like 25 years, that would be, you just kind of be like, all right,
no more
done.
of that stuff.
Yeah, exactly. But she, she put up with myself, and I have 3 sisters, and I don't know how she did it. They weren't all we weren't all here at the same time, because I have like 2 older sisters and a younger one, which we'll get into maybe another day. But yes, she's incredible. She has the most amount of love I've ever seen in an individual, and it comes off weirdly. She's worried that it comes off as like not genuine because she's so nice. But Joe, you've met her. She's just she's not trying to like pull the wool over your eyes. She like just wants to make people, everyone cookies.
And legitimately just a nice person. I don't think there's a bad bone in her body, sort of a deal.
I don't know. I've been trying to bring it out. I'm like, there is evil in all of us, Ma.
Yeah,
like where is it?
She's almost like too nice. It's like our buddy from college, Matt Peterson. Good guy, great guy.
Happy birthday, Matt.
It's his birthday?
Yesterday.
Oh, happy late birthday, Matt. Oh, man.
Well, let's tell him to listen to this one. You'll be like, Matt Peterson. Yeah, that guy.
Yeah, miss you, buddy. But anywho.
Love that guy.
Such a positive guy. I'm worried for that day that he just loses it and blows up. Because there's got to be a lot bottled up in there. But no, I know he doesn't let anything bug him. He's just positive throughout, and glass is always half full. And in a lot of ways, your mother's the same way. I just positive, glass is always half full sort of woman, and very giving and generous. There's always enough cookies to go around.
Exactly.
She makes great chocolate chip cookies. That's it.
She does. She has more youth than I do too, Joe. Like, she always just wants to be doing things, and I just sometimes I'm like, Ma, you just take a moment, sit down, watch something or whatever, and she just doesn't want to. She just wants to keep going, and I really respect that.
Yeah.
But it's easy, I think, to be cynical. It's easy to be critical. Well, actually, it's not easy to be critical. It's hard to be critical because that's what I am. But
trust me, I'm trying to get there. I still haven't gotten.
We'll get you there. I'm slowly whittling you down. I'm so proud of myself because you'll be like, here's where a movie's at, and I'm like, Joe, let's talk about this for a minute. And you're like, actually, no. I think it's really easy to just kind of be in a bad mood and kind of be angry at everybody, but she constantly doesn't do that. She's just always nice to every person. Oh my gosh. So I really respect her. She is my real life hero. She still is to this day, and I'm lucky to have her. So, Ma, if you're ever listening to this, I love you. You're the greatest.
There you go.
But I tell you that.
Doesn't that just give you the feels?
Doesn't give you the feels. They're like, this guy's a mama's boy. What have I gotten into? Can we trust what he says? Why is he talking like a 1920s radio broadcaster? Nobody knows. And our last question for the night is from another friend of the show, Chris McKeague. Great guy. Says, at Go Critical, where do you think Don't Nod should go with the second season of Life is Strange? Should it be an anthology or a direct sequel? Now, Joe, hashtag Critical Podcast, I know you saw a little bit of this game. Like, just a little bit, me playing it here and there. It's the one we make all the choices and the 2 young ladies, and they kind of have all these problems. So, I like I said, you haven't played it, but would you, if you're making another one of these games, would you be like, all right, let's just use the same 2 girls or the same setting, depending on how you ended the game? Or would you just say, let's go to another place, new people, let's just start all over?
High school, right?
It was like a prep school, kind of like pseudo college. They were like 19.
Oh, okay.
So they were like kind of I think it might have been college. It was weird. I was like, huh? But it was still high schooly, so I don't know.
Let's jump to work life. Adults at the corporate office.
Is it the same girls?
Yeah.
Okay. Because I will say, spoiler alert, there is one ending where one of the girls doesn't make it out. So you'd have to go like off that ending.
Yeah, well, the girl goes to corporate office life work, hates her boss, ends up killing everybody.
With their time manipulation powers.
I don't know.
Yeah.
Like that would be neat.
I don't know. I think I see the merit in both. I think if you do the second season of this one, you have to go with the end, like a certain ending. You have to pick one or the other. I guess you could do it where like Mass Effect did it, where you put in your old save and then you just go from there. But I think the one without her best friend, regardless of who dies, it would be kind of weird to have her be like just by herself, because this other person was like a huge factor, obviously. But I think at the same time, you could kind of just go in a different direction with it. I think if you're able to do that, that'd be pretty powerful. Maybe do a cameo from these guys somewhere. That'd be kind of fun too. But, you know, you guys obviously have the writing down. You can find other talented voice actors, even though I love these two. I think this should just be kind of a closed-off story. It's kind of like Stranger Things with me. And Joe, I know you haven't seen it yet, but they've announced they're doing like a Stranger Things season 2, obviously. But it's going to be the continuation of this story. And I was kind of hoping they might like American Horror Story it, where they just go in a completely different direction. And they're like, oh, it's completely new cast, new place, new era, new stuff all together. So they wouldn't feel like they're trapped in this one, you know, like, oh, we're always playing 80s music, blah, blah, blah. So yeah, Chris, I think either way it'll be good, but I think maybe going with a different direction, because I don't know how you top the first one, because they would be hard to do. So yeah, with that though, Joe, I think that's the podcast for this week. If you do have any questions,
that's the podcast.
Oh gosh, everything. We're just gonna time stamping it. But if you do have any questions for us, just tweet hashtag Critical Podcast at either Joe or myself. I am at GoCritical, capital G, capital C. If you want to tweet at Joe,
at Lever_627, and that's Lever just like Beaver, only with an L.
Excellent. And before I forget to do this, because I keep forgetting to, please, thank. I just want to thank two people who have helped with this a lot. This is Daleb for our intro-outro music and our theme, if you will, and Joran Evers. And I was going to say please, because he's done the art we have, but please check out his comic Hellmates. It is excellent. If you like Spawn, you like Darksiders, you like Dante's Inferno, that's what I'm calling it, just smashed together into this cool comic. It is great. It is free. It is on the internet. You can go read it right now. And if you do, please, you probably saw his name pop up before. It might be still popping up right now. Please do tweet at him. Tell him what you think about it. What you like, what you don't like, characters you like, all that jazz. Because he is, this is his first comic. And he has been there for us, and we will be there for him. And together, we'll take this whole YouTube thing for ourselves. I'm sorry. I got a little power hungry there. But I've told you, Joe, in the past, like my dream is to have him do thumbnails for everything we do. It would be hard because I'd be like, Jordan, we're gonna need a thumbnail of Venom versus a Power Ranger, and I'm gonna need it in 2 hours. And he's gonna be like, oh no.
When the money starts coming in, we'll get him on board.
Yeah, exactly. And that transitions very well. If you want to support the show, please check out our PayPal down below. I want to set up a Patreon soon. If you guys would like that more, let us know. But also, you can donate it to us. We're also on Twitch as well. You can follow us on there. We have just mine, which is just Jimmy_good, or at Critical Reviews, but they're both linked down in the description. Joe, you're shushing? Oh, we're still going. Anyway, I thought he was shushing me. I was like, what the heck? I think I know what he's doing. Anyway, this is so. I wish you guys could see this. But so if you want to support the show, do it there. But another thing you can do besides liking, sharing, and subscribing to us, and I already kind of said the word there, but sharing, it's huge. Seriously, if you want the show to grow, kind of like we do, just share it with a friend. Really not, too much. I don't want to be pushy, but you have to be kind of on the here. You have to be kind of self-promotional, which I've learned. So, but I love all of you guys who've been so supportive so far. I mean, we're getting close to 100 subscribers on YouTube. It doesn't seem like a lot, but it is. And, I think once we hit certain check marks and stuff like that, we'll start to grow, start to be noticed a little bit more. And it's just been fun. It's been a fun ride so far. And even though we're microscopic, I think we have a good base, and we've got a lot of good people here. And that's the thing I'd rather have. I'd rather have people who are really interested and invested in us and we you. So please, and I didn't mean to plug Nintendo right there.
Zing!
I'm honestly not getting paid for that. That would have been great.
The
They would've
best
been like, "It was
Legionnaires
seamless."
on YouTube.
Yeah, they're the only Legionnaires. They're ours, and we theirs. But I gotta stop saying that. But honestly, if you want to tweet at us anytime or message us on there, please do. Please, anytime you have a question or if you have any ideas for the channel, if there's something you want to see or if there's something you think would work. Also, too, this might be even more self-promotional, but if you have another YouTuber that you really like and you think that we would get along with, I would love to collaborate on something. Obviously, it might be hard because the currency on YouTube is kind of subscribers right now, and seeing that we have less than 100, it might be a tough sell for most people who have a ton of people to be like, we're going to work with these guys. Like, they'd be like, what are these guys about? They don't seem to have a lot of people. And I'd be like, yes, but we have the best people. And they'd be like, oh, because it's always quantity over quality on YouTube, which is unfortunate because we're going for quality. So,
Yeah.
But yeah,
Well said,
Joe,
friend. Well said.
thank you. I feel like I'm trailing on here. Anyway, thank you guys so much. We love you. You're great, and we look forward to see you guys next week. Take it easy.
Deuces.